Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hobbs and Horror. I'm Eric.
Who am I?
I'm Sergeant Kabuki-man. Yes.
Jason doesn't have a name on this episode, so
When
we're
the
back.
monkey rides the jaguar.
We're back with another episode, and this week we did Terror Firmer, rocking in at a 6.1 IMDb rating, which I'm pretty sure is the highest we've ever done.
And I can't wait to get to Gavin's synopsis of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do just want to quick say, like, you had earlier talked about how there's a uncut version and there's an extended version.
Yeah.
Okay. I remembered there is, and it actually came. So this was the first DVD I ever bought, and the DVD I bought came with both versions on it.
Mm.
It's not really an extended version; it's like an uncut version. So like, there's a censored version of this movie.
Yeah.
The censored version of this movie is actually just as funny as this movie, because how they censor it is, so there's scenes in the movie like when he is in the bathroom, and when Lloyd Kaufman's in the bathroom, he plays a blind movie director. He's peeing on these two cast members, right? Well, they don't want to show that because it's censored. So what he does is he cuts to a scene where he's just sitting there throwing frozen peas.
Really?
Yeah. Which actually makes it even funnier than showing it. I wouldn't say even funnier. I think both versions have their place. But it's the only time I've ever seen a movie that went that route with the censor thing. But anyway.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, Jason, as far as coming up with a
they
plot
cut a lot, though.
plot synopsis of this movie. Good luck, Gavin.
I mean, it's the short version, the long version, there's like a 25-minute difference. So there's like a lot
that they're cutting out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you watch the movie, you can see that if they were censoring it, there'd be a lot of stuff to cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want the plot is really simple. You want the plot?
Yeah.
I'll give you the plot.
Yeah.
All right. So this movie is based on a book written by Lloyd Kaufman and James Gunn. And I don't remember the exact title.
Make your own damn movie?
No, not Make Your Own Damn Movie. It's like everything I learned about filming, I learned from Toxic Avenger.
I actually read that one.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so really, the plot is very simple. This goes through like a couple days in the life of what it's like to work on a Lloyd Kaufman set. I'm sure this is not 100% accurate, but I also don't feel it's that far off.
Yeah.
The only difference between what happens in real life and what happens in this movie is simultaneously there is a serial killer on the loose on the set who is picking off people involved with the movie one by one, which early on we are led to believe is a good-looking woman with a really sexy voice. And then later we realize that may not exactly be what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the plot's very straightforward. It's just a serial killer picking off of they even call it Troma in the movie. They don't even change the name of the company.
Yeah.
They're working on a Troma set.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good, Gavin.
Thanks.
I mean, like I think you pretty much encapsulated it all, and it just seemed like there was just so much shit going on in this movie that how would you do
Well,
that?
most of it's not really the plot. There's a lot of it's just like a bunch of gags.
Yeah. The Toddster and
I left the Toddster out of the plot. I got to start over.
yeah. I mean, the Toddster, man, really makes this movie.
I already
for
forgot
me.
about the Toddster.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't remember. You didn't remember a lot of it. I literally have seen this movie so many times that like every single line in this movie I could like probably recite with the movie as it plays. Like it's so. And you're right. Like, we were just talking about this before we started the podcast, but like we all kind of agree this movie holds up.
Yeah. In fact,
was...
I remember the first time I watched it, because we didn't say this, but actually this is probably the only movie everybody has ever watched that we did. Well, Doom Generation too.
Yeah.
I remember hating this movie when I first saw it, like dreadfully hating
You hated it.
Yeah, I
And-
did.
And this movie is clearly
Like because
it
was,
is
but-
clearly.
Stop. Why did you hate it? Because it was gross?
I do not remember because it was. It's not my thing, man.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just curious if there was something that changed about
I think what the biggest thing that changed it is that this movie is on 2-3 steps easily above everything else we've watched. You know, like this is what this genre of movie in
Yes.
my eyes should be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, they had the right amount of comedy. I thought the effects, while ridiculously cheesy at most points in time,
Mhm.
it was ridiculously cheesy in a fantastic way.
Yeah.
Like, it's what you want when you watch a movie like this.
Mhm.
You know, the cheesiness was not because they didn't have, well, it was because they didn't have a budget, but they had it nailed down so well that it's what you want them to do in this movie. It's not, they're not being held back by anything,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the first question I want to ask both of you is this a movie you would have ever picked for this podcast? Or would you put this in a category that, no, this is way too good to do on this podcast? Because for the listeners, I picked this movie. So
Jason, you want that or?
I mean, I probably wouldn't have picked this one only because it's one of the most well-known Troma movies out there. And I feel like it's been like anybody who's kind of wanted to see it has had ample opportunity, especially now that it's on streaming and everything else. It's pretty well known. I like we were talking before, like I was thinking about going into some of the Troma movies, but I was thinking about going into more of the ones that kind of pass us by, like what is it? Dumpster Baby. I'm very curious about Dumpster Baby, and I've heard good things about Dumpster Baby. So
I have not heard good things.
Really?
I haven't heard bad things either, but I have not heard good things.
yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of talk about Dumpster Baby out there, but like I think it's appropriate for the podcast. I definitely think it's an appropriate movie for the podcast because it is a bad movie that's ends up being really good. It's like, I don't know, Gavin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have picked it or not, but I don't take issue with the pick. Sooner or later, a Troma movie was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm kind of glad this was it because this is probably their best movie. I don't know if that's going too far, but it might be Troma's best movie.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
It's not my favorite Troma movie personally, but my favorite movies and what I think are the best movies are not the same thing. Those are two very different things in my world.
Me too.
So, like, for me, like, my favorite is Sergeant Kabuki-Man. But it's not as good as this movie.
Right.
It's not a good movie.
Right.
This is actually, I think, a legitimately good movie. Like, which I don't know if that's something that I'm going to have to fight really hard to argue on here, but...
not with me, you're not.
But, so yeah, I guess maybe I wouldn't have picked it just because I wouldn't have thought of it as necessarily being bad enough to be on here. But it definitely hits all the targets. I mean, it's got all the low budget crap that we're looking for. So
and the reason why I asked that question is just because I want the perception of, like I said, this movie to me was steps and steps above what we've watched. And is that just because this is what these movies are supposed to be, and the stuff that we've been watching are people trying to achieve the level of Lloyd Kaufman, which in falling dramatically short?
I think, again, I don't know if this is controversial, but I think Lloyd is legitimately a good director.
I do too.
I think that what he does, there's a point in the movie where Casey.
Yeah.
Where Casey is complaining about the Sam Fuller movie Shark. And he says, "Oh, well, if you don't have the budget, you shouldn't have done it." And what's funny about that is the stuff that he says about mainstream movies is supposed to be the bad guy. Like the bad guy version, like, oh, only Titanic and stuff like is good. But on that point, I think he made a solid point because that's why Lloyd is good at what he does. He knows the limitations of his budget.
Mm-hmm.
He stretches those limitations, but he knows what they are. So you get exactly the level you're expecting out of it. He's not trying to make a great movie and then failing at it.
Yeah.
He's hitting the mark of what level he's at.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you gave him $50 million, he'd make a damn good $50 million movie.
You know,
but that's not the world he's living in. He knows how to make what he has.
I've always thought, like, if I ever won the lottery, I would love to give him like $200 million to just make a movie.
Just see what he does.
Yeah. I honestly don't think that he would be like investing in all this great CGI and shit. I think he'd just have he'd have like $100,000 worth of cantaloupes. You know, I don't know. I'm very curious what he would do with a $200 million budget or something.
He's like, man, I can blow up a lot of cantaloupes in this movie.
Yeah, Lloyd's a weird guy. You know, we went off on a tangent about Charlie Band before. I'm not going to do that again this time. But
yeah,
but
well, you mentioned the name, so Jason's going there.
No.
So.
No. But Lloyd lives in that same kind of world. But they're very different people.
Very different.
And like so Lloyd came out of like this background. Like he went to Yale. Like he grew up and he had money. He could have done whatever the hell he wanted to do. His early movies are very artsy. He hung out with major rising star directors like Oliver Stone. Like he was on the set of Rocky. Like he used to be somebody who could have been mainstream, and he just said fuck it. And he's like, I'm not gonna do that. And he chose to go the other way. So like he does this Uncle Lloyd thing where he's like, I'm the goofy weird guy. But like the whole thing is an act. Like the dude is brilliant, and he just knows how to go for the direction he's going in. Charlie Band is not an act. Charlie Band is exactly the sleazy guy he presents himself as.
Yeah.
Well, and like I think you talked about on the many diatribes we've gone on with Charlie Band. Charlie Band is a guy that's just making movies to make money, and Lloyd Kaufman still very much has the art in the movies he's making.
He does, but he still has that money thing too, because Troma doesn't make a lot of movies, but Troma buys and distributes a shit ton of movies. And they're debatably worse than Full Moon movies.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can buy a movie for $5 and distribute it, they'll do it. So they'll slap their name on anything.
Yeah.
But they're more honest about it. Like they're not going and being like, dudes, you got to check out this amazing movie. Like Charlie Band will be like, dude, look, check out this movie. There's like a bong and it'll kill you. Lloyd won't do that. Lloyd knows that he's peddling garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first started, like this was the big one for me that really like sold me on Troma. Like I think it must have came out when we were about 15 years old.
Probably. Yeah.
Something like that. And so it was just at the perfect time. You know, like my budding sixth sense of humor was just, you know, and I remember being a little disappointed just because I watched this movie. I loved it. I mean, I would put this on my like top 5, like best like horror comedies, if you want to even call it horror. Yeah.
Top 5.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with alongside Tucker and Dale and all those, it's a totally different type of style. But I think like one thing I really think doesn't get mentioned, and I don't know if maybe, Gavin, you can tell me whether you agree with this or not. Mm-hmm. I think he was a little ahead of his time in how he paces his films. Because the reason I say that is, you look at movies from the 80s, right? And this wasn't from the 80s, this was the 90s. However, it was still kind of at the end of that era of slow burn movies. Of movies that just kind of, you know, I don't want to say dragged, but there was a lot of development. There was a lot of build up. And, you know, even in the 90s, we saw some of that, you know. It wasn't until the early 2000s, I think, where all of a sudden, you know, even kids' movies now, it's just nonstop action in your face. Like constant stimulation. And I feel like he was a little ahead of his time with that. Because the pacing of his movies, the ones he's directed, are very similar to Terra Firma, where it's literally... I mean, the whole time we watched that movie, I think I picked my phone up twice just to check my notifications. Otherwise, I was like completely... Yeah. And I've seen the movie 1,000 times, you know.
And you're going to miss it. if you turn your
And
head
if you
away,
do-
you're going to miss a lot.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's just constantly go, go, go. And that was another thing that I thought was really good about this movie was that it grabbed you right away and just took you in it. And it never really stopped
Yeah.
through the whole movie. And I mean, I will say, I thought the movie towards the end, it started dragging. Like, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to be done now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they could have shortened it, but
It does drop off a little at the end, but at that point you're in anyway. I mean,
right. And the other side of that too is that I'm looking at it from my perspective where this isn't really my style of movie.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who really digs this, I mean, you guys were probably locked in fine. Like I think you even said, Jason, this movie could go on for another 2 hours and I'd never get bored.
Yeah, it's true. As long as they could keep that pace up, I think that I'd never get sick of it.
Yeah, I'll jump on and agree with that as well. Like we had the running joke earlier on in this podcast about like my ideal movie is 87 minutes. And this movie, like the short version is 98, and I think we watched the longer version.
We did, yeah.
And I have no issues whatsoever with the pacing of this movie. Like I wasn't at any point being like, you've overstayed your welcome.
Yeah.
I thought it's just fine. Whether he was ahead of his time about that I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion one way or the other on that, but he definitely understood the pacing.
Yeah.
And like things just kept going. There was always another gag coming. And same as you said, Jason, like I barely looked at my phone, and I'm really bad about looking at my phone, but barely in this movie because everything keeps coming and you have to watch because the most random crap is going to pop out of the background in every single scene. Like, I don't know how you even script a movie like this. Because, like, it could be something as dumb as, like, two people say something, and then the third person says something, but they just say it in, like, an odd voice.
Right.
But that's all it takes. Just be like, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
But it hooks you in. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, I don't think there's a single frame of this movie that I would take out. Like, honestly, like, and that's why, I mean, you guys can probably guess where my rating is going to go with this, but...
I think I know where your rating's going to go.
Yeah, yeah, you know, it's pretty predictable, but, you know, I mean, this movie to me was perfection. Like, it's got everything in it that, and I think part of it too is the time it came out. It was a perfect time for us as teenagers and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So one of the things I took from this movie, I compare this to like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where this was, when you watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, you get the feeling that this was them just having fun.
Yeah.
You know, like we're going to make a movie and just, it's going to be fun. Now,
and I really like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, just for the record. I like that one.
So I'm curious, is that just the feel of a Lloyd Kaufman movie, or would you say that that's exactly what they were doing in this movie, where it was more of them all?
This is more than that is a feel, but I think this more than ever because he was really like, because he's playing like a fake version of himself, and this is like the fake version of a set. They made so many references to, like, this was a really like a love letter, you know, like if you had seen the earlier Troma movies, you're gonna pick, like, I don't know if Eric knows, but I know Jason obviously knows that, like, at the Toddster party, the punch bowl thing, it's the penis monster in the punch bowl. Yeah. Like, the average person picking up this movie is not going to know why there's this weird creature in the punch bowl, but that's a reference to an earlier Troma movie.
Yeah. There's most of the, at least the ones that are directed by Lloyd Kaufman, there's a lot of inside jokes for people that are into Troma movies. I mean, Troma's got a following, you know? And so there's certain things we expect from a Troma movie that's directed by Lloyd Kaufman. For instance, the car crash scene. Yeah. You know, comes to mind first. That's in every single Troma movie. And if listeners out there, you're not that familiar with Troma, you don't know what I'm referencing, in every single one of the Troma movies that Lloyd has done, there's always a scene where there's a car chase. And every single one, they use the same footage that they used originally in the Toxic Avenger because he's too goddamn cheap to make a new.
That's awesome, man.
Of course. Well, I think initially when he reused it, it was because he was cheap. After people responded by like, dude, that's the same fucking scene.
Yeah.
Then he's like, oh, okay, I think I'll do this in every movie, and. And it's but now we look for it every time the new Troma movie comes out. We expect there's going to be a car chase scene, and it's going to noticeably cut to this way older scene of a car that's not even probably the same car that's flipping over and exploding.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they played into that here too, like. My understanding is the same as what you just said. Like, I think he originally did it because he was cheap, but then it became like the running joke.
Yeah.
But here, like, by the time Terra Firma came out, again, the fans who, would know the references were in on this joke. Mm-hmm. So they cue it up. Like, it's not like a 30-second scene. Here they cue it up like 5 minutes ahead of when the payoff is. Do this whole other, like, side gag leading up to the car crash and explosion. So it's like, you're already primed. You're like, okay.
I know this is coming.
Okay, you showed the car driving footage. Yep. I know what's coming. There's going to be a car flip.
Yep.
But you got to wait. Because first there's going to be a naked man running through Times Square.
Yes. Yep. The other thing, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. And one thing I will say watching this now for a podcast where I'm actually looking for things to discuss about it, the acting was phenomenal in this movie. I mean, there are so many different characters on that movie set in this movie, and each one is very unique. Each one is very well acted. I mean, every single one of them. The acting was just phenomenal. I thought, for a movie that's, it's a Troma movie, but for a low budget movie, Christ, they did a really good job.
Yeah. Like
every single actor in that did a great job.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, I agree. And that kind of goes in parallel with what I'm saying, like with Lloyd knowing what his target is, like with a budget. Acting isn't really a budget issue necessarily, but they're acting on the same level. Their acting is bad, but it's all bad in the same way.
Right.
So it's consistent.
Yes.
Like, if you had a normal movie and one character talked the way that these characters talk, you'd be like, this person's freaking terrible.
Yeah.
But because they're all so consistent in the way they do it, it's perfect.
Yeah, and I think that takes, talent to do that.
It does. It certainly does.
To have that consistency is, that's not an easy feat, I wouldn't think.
Yeah. Yeah, the tone is, there isn't anybody that takes you out of the movie because they all understand what level they're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the characters. I want to give a shout out to a character.
Is it Joe?
I don't know who's Joe.
Joe Fleischman?
No.
Okay.
Not Joe
Rest
Fleischman.
in peace, Joe Fleischman.
No. I don't know the character's name. And I don't even know what their title is. Yeah. But it's like script supervisor or production assistant or whatever. The person with the clipboard that follows Lloyd around.
Okay. Yeah.
I love that. That is one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie. Is that in the very first scene, it's like a young man with a mustache and stuff. And then slowly throughout the movie, each time you see them, something has changed. Where then by the end of the movie, it's a woman with
all ears.
I totally missed that.
Oh yeah. It's the same actor the whole time. But from first scene to the last scene, each time you see this character, they've slowly changed from a boy to a girl. And by the end, they got a tank top with their boobs out.
Yeah.
But in the first shot, they have a mustache and and you can tell it's a woman with a fake mustache, but they play it like it's not.
Right.
And I think that's just great. Nobody ever says a single thing.
Now I feel like I have to rewatch this movie just to watch that because that's fun. That's great.
There's all kinds of even when they're in Casey's bedroom later on, there's so many jokes about the labels of the stuff on the wall. There's one of the jars is Popo's legs.
Yes.
And Popo is a puppet. He doesn't have legs.
Right.
Like, there's just so many weird things that nobody comments on, but they're just going on in the background.
And the attention to detail is just,
And I did take that from watching this. I noticed a lot of, like, there were jokes that anybody would get, and then there was more clever jokes that you had to really be listening to that added a whole nother level of the comedy to the movie, which I think is just brilliant because there's a lot of people that'll never hear those jokes because they just don't pay that close attention to it.
Yeah.
But for the people that do, it enhances the movie that much more.
Yeah.
So what do you think as far as the humor goes in this movie? This is very punk rock.
Like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Troma's very punk rock. Do you think it holds up in today's culture? Like, do you think...
The humor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I would tell you that some people would probably be offended by a lot of the things that are done.
I mean, there's
movies,
pedophilia jokes in this. There's, like, all kinds of shit.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's any more offensive now than it was when it came out.
Okay.
I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Like, before we watch it today, I was concerned about that.
Sure.
I was concerned about that because I'm like, can we still have a movie where where the main villain, like, can we still do that?
Right.
And I'm going to say, yeah, I think we can. And the reason I come away with that is because, again, this is the podcast where all I do is kiss Lloyd's ass.
Yeah.
So if Lloyd ever hears this, Lloyd, this is me just kissing your ass for an hour. Anytime that he throws in anything that's like remotely offensive or, you know, pushing the boundaries or whatever, like, he's not doing it to be mean.
Yeah.
At no point, like, the main, I guess we can give it away. You're supposed to watch the movie before you hear that. So, like, it turns out, like, the main villain is, like, a hermaphrodite.
Right.
But they were born with both sexes apparently working, and they got their penis chopped off
by Ron Jeremy.
By Ron Jeremy.
Who rapes them.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so it's definitely, like, now that, like, trans issues are such, you know, mainstream, it could come across the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong, but I don't think that Lloyd is, like, making fun of it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's really what he's doing here.
Yeah.
When he addresses these controversial things, he's embracing it. He's bringing it out there. He's opening a conversation.
Yeah.
He's not, like, we always use the phrase, like, punching up or punching down.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's not punching down on anybody.
I agree.
Like, it's done in such a way, like, you don't catch it if you don't know, but he's actually making fun of the people who make fun of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that, but I will flip on the other side, and there are some people that are so sensitive about those issues.
They don't care about context.
Yeah, they don't care. You just don't talk about it,
yeah.
You know, or whatever. It's just a thing that is not appropriate to be said.
Yeah.
You know.
I think what really kind of like reinforces what Gavin is saying is, like, there's so much going on in the movie. So, like, the hermaphrodite part, whatever, like, he's got a stub penis and this pussy that's like dripping and, like, all gross, you know, like, but, you know, like, while all this is going on, there's also, like, you know, like a very butch lesbian chick or whatever getting fingered on the side while jerking off somebody, you know. And I mean, when you add all of this stuff up, how can you find it offensive to one group?
Right.
Because it's literally he's embracing everything. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's sensitive. But he's embracing so many different things, and you see it all on the film. So when he gets to a part that might seem offensive, like, to a particular group, like, you've already, like, seen
him poke fun at 13 other groups.
Well, not even poking fun at, like, literally just showing you, like, a gay guy with, like, tons of makeup on, like, talking about sucking dick and whatever. Like, it's obvious, like, to anybody who isn't looking for something.
But again, that character, like, another character might, like, make a anti-gay comment at them.
Yep.
But the movie itself is in no way making fun of that character.
Right. Yeah. I just thought I wanted to get your opinion about that because I thought that was something when I found out you were going to do this movie, I haven't seen it probably in at least 10 years. And so I was wondering how that was going to hold up.
I think it's all about the context. And it's worth noting that, like, a lot of people came out of Troma.
Yes.
James Gunn, who partially wrote this, came out of Troma. Now he runs the DC movie universe. Eli Roth is in this movie. Joe Lynch is in this movie. They're both big directors now. And around the same time, you know who else comes out of Troma? The guys who made South Park. Mm-hmm. And South Park is very much the same thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Each week, they're making fun of everything, but at no point are they mean-spirited about it.
Mm-hmm. And
they know their audience.
And they are one that's, like, a lot of people reference as, like, South Park's never gotten canceled.
Right.
Like South Park is, like, gets a free pass. Like, like, people do not go back and look at the old South Park episodes. And, like, I mean, even I went back and I actually watched all of South Park with Jack because he wanted to watch them. And the earlier season, it gets more offensive as it goes. Mm-hmm. But when they introduced Timmy, the disabled kid, that's the only thing that I can really think of that might be like, now, like if they were to come out with that now, like maybe not okay.
Yeah, Timmy and Jimmy are kind of questionable, but but as a whole, like, again, they're not. You got to understand that they're not doing it in a mean way, and they know who the audience is. Yeah, they've got. I can't think of the teacher's name.
Mr. Garrison.
Mr. Garrison, and Mr. Garrison has a gay
sex slave,
like BDSM sex slave. It's at some point in the series. Mr. Garrison starts transitioning into a woman. Yep. He gets a gerbil lost in his ass. For the entire episode is the gerbil's adventures in his ass.
Which is still my favorite South Park episode.
Right. Yeah. But at no point is this ever making fun of gay people. Like, that's not the point.
Yeah. And I think, like, that really shines through. Like it's genuine. Like, you can tell... because you can kind of tell when there's something, like, low-key, mean-spirited in something. Even if it's not outright, a lot of times you can pick up on that, like, this isn't really,
Yeah, and I can never envision having a moment in, like, through Terra Firma, all the things they do, never being like, oh my God, I can't believe they just did that. It's never that bad to really...
And if you buy into one, you kind of gotta buy into it all, like, because it's all the same type of thing. So you'd be picking a movie apart. And you could easily be like, well, why did you have a problem with this, but not, like this other thing, Yeah.
So. And I don't know how to, like. I couldn't tell you where the line is. Like, that's too abstract.
Absolutely.
I have no idea how to tell you where that is. But it is important to understand that this line exists, even if you don't know where it is, and you can do humor. I mean, that's the whole history of humor. I mean, especially in the stand-up world, which is way rougher. Yeah, I mean, you're shitting on people, but it's never ever mean. If it is mean, you're doing it wrong. Then you're not even doing stand-up. You're just being an ass. Yeah. But if you're making fun of people, but you're doing it in a way where you're, like, doing it sort of ironically, then it's okay. Yeah. And Lloyd gets that. Like, he will make fun of everybody. There was a thing in Terra Firma. This is a self-referential thing where they talk about how Lloyd, or they refer to him as his character's name. Yeah. How Lloyd was ahead of his time because he had AIDS in a movie in, like, 1985 before any mainstream movie would touch it. And they said again in Terra Firma, they're like, he didn't address that in a serious way. Yeah. like it was clearly done in a highly inappropriate way. Right. But they know that. Like, they're not out there to, like, educate people and being like, here's how you protect yourself from it. They're just opening the conversation on these boundary pushing issues.
Yeah, like nuclear energy.
Yeah.
As another one, Toxic Avenger. I mean, that's what, yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting.
So you got to understand Lloyd. Maybe you don't even have to understand Lloyd. You should be able to watch the movie and understand that it's not hateful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to have a long conversation with him about that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if he'd go on the record about it, or if he'd have to stay in his character, or he's just a goofy guy.
Well, the reason I bring it up is, partly just to make the conversation, but also because he does have a movie that's been done called Shakespeare's Shitstorm for quite a while, and it hasn't gotten released. I know that the same thing kind of happened with Poultrygeist, where it sat for a long time and it didn't get. And
I know some people have seen Shakespeare's Shitstorm. I don't know how people are seeing it, but it is getting around somehow.
Well, I think it's the same way you're going to be seeing it. Yeah. I think it's been to a few festivals, but like, I just wonder, is he gonna kind of reference this new like woke culture stuff in this new movie? Is he going to just continue to do what he did and hope for the best? Because I just wonder. I wonder what his take is, or what his what his response is going to be with the culture shift in this and new movies that come out.
Well, I would assume. I mean, you got to remember, as our culture shifts, he's shifting too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be some sort of level of controversy, probably, because that's what he's always done. But it might be like if you compare it to what he was doing 15 years ago, it's probably going to be toned down, because just by nature, his sense of humor has been toned down.
Maybe
over time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember anything in Poultrygeist being controversial.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Like I said, that was a musical.
But it's not. But that
Romeo and Juliet certainly was.
Romeo and Juliet's something else. But Poultrygeist. So Eric, just so you're aware of what this is, the premise of that movie is they build a fast food restaurant, right? Like a fried chicken restaurant. But they built it on top of an ancient Indian burial ground. So the place becomes like, I don't know if they're ghosts or demons or what they are, but like these half human, half chicken spirits come and attack them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And this movie has been made and is available.
Oh, yeah. It exists.
So maybe we have my next choice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something.
Well, remember you said you couldn't handle musicals, and this one.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of musical numbers.
Yeah, that's not probably.
If I would have picked a Troma movie, I probably would have picked Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
which isn't like the most horror movie.
No,
but it's been a very long time since I've seen it. But it was one of the ones I found more challenging to sit through, like as far as being uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the father in that movie. Juliet's father is like keeps her in a little glass cage and just takes her out and rapes her. Like it's like there's a line in the movie where he's like, I'm gonna kill you while I fuck you. Like, and it's like, oh shit, like, and I mean, there's some really, really like offensive shit in that movie.
Yeah,
but that is where we get the penis monster from. I think, right?
Is it from there?
I think so.
I thought that was a Nukem High thing.
No, that was Nukem High was 80s and shit. That was before. I'm pretty sure Tromeo and Juliet, because in Tromeo and Juliet he has that dream of the penis coming out.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know.
Shows what I know. I don't know where the penis monster's from.
I'm pretty sure. Otherwise, Killer Condom too. But was it in Killer Condom, or was that? I don't fucking know. Jesus Christ.
Go home and watch all the movies again and report back.
Yeah.
But yeah. Tromeo and Juliet, like, it's I won't say anything bad about it, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to watch something uncomfortable, I watched something really uncomfortable last night.
What's that?
I watched a movie. This is a Lifetime movie. Just to preface this, I watched a Lifetime.
Why the fuck are you always watching these Lifetime movies, man?
I watched this. It was called Girl in the Basement.
Huh.
And holy crap.
Yeah.
It's based on a true story.
Uh-huh.
It's Lifetime ripped from the headlines. And like this father doesn't like his disrespectful teenage daughter.
Oh no.
So he builds this bunker in the basement.
Oh, I've seen this. I've seen this. Oh, that is a fucking good movie.
And he puts her down there.
Yep.
And keeps her down there for 20 years.
Yep. Rapes her
repeatedly.
Yes. Has kids down there.
Has kids with her.
Yep.
And then at one point, he even threatens to have kids with his incestual granddaughter.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a fucked up movie.
Yeah.
And
like,
it's based on a
this
true
is a
story?
true thing that happened.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, this was on Lifetime. Like, it was really hard to watch some parts because they don't show anything, but man, like they do not shy away from that.
Yeah.
So is that on a streaming service that you watch that?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I got that downloaded illegally.
Nice. Well,
it's based on the same story that the movie Room was based on, but
Mhm.
Room is almost like a happy feel-good movie compared to that.
yeah, I agree. I didn't know those two were based off the same thing, but
Yeah.
I've seen both of them, and I liked both of them. But I would definitely agree with you that The Girl in the Basement is much more uncomfortable.
It was. That was another one where like it got like my full attention.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So maybe we should start a podcast on Lifetime movies that should have never been made, and this could be
No,
the
not
first
never
one.
should have been. But it's like the Girls in the Basement for 20 years has at least 3, if not 4, kids with her own father,
Yeah.
and they never get to leave this bunker and all that time. That in itself is creepy as hell. But then on top of this, the girl's mother and sister live upstairs, and for the 20 years they're looking for her.
Yep.
And she's like 5 feet underneath them.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is just Going back to the movie, I wanted to say, as far as like uncomfortable or pedophile type shit, one of the things that Lloyd Kaufman does in his movies is he kind of makes people uncomfortable about his own kids because he thinks it's funny. Like in Romeo and Juliet, one of the main character, the father, is always referring to Juliet as his little Crenshaw melon. And he's like, Daddy's little Crenshaw melon. All the time, right? Apparently, in real life, that is what he calls his daughter, his little Crenshaw melon. And I thought that, like, it's really uncomfortable to know that, but it's like, why does he do that shit? I don't know, but
Write what you know, man. Write what you know.
I guess I don't know.
Oh, Lloyd.
Yeah, but that was one of those things because I did read that book. Everything I Learned was from the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah,
I read that when I was a security guard back in the day, and yeah, like that was one of the things that I stuck out from the book. I'm like, why would you like?
Yeah.
And he has his kids in the movies doing weird shit and stuff, and kind of makes his own daughter look like mentally challenged and stuff.
Maybe I'll corner him in October and just berate him with questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm stuck in a rundown Holiday Inn with him for a weekend. So.
Yeah, and you got a lot of time to prepare, so
yeah,
you can come up with some good ones.
Yeah, and that's this is early enough that I can do this. I can be like, hey, for people who don't know, there's a convention called Cinema Wasteland, and it's in Cleveland, Ohio. It's actually in Strongsville, Ohio, but we say Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And of the many, many people who are going to be there, including the cast of Sleepaway Camp, which we did on this podcast, Lloyd Kaufman is going to be there showing Shakespeare Shitstorm. And it's a great convention. It's like the dirt mall of conventions. It's an absolute terrible hotel. The elevator doesn't work half the time. Really run down. And this is like the convention you go to if you're into just complete garbage.
Yeah.
Because all it is this, if you want to see punk rock, heavy metal people passed out in the hallways of a hotel drunk in the middle of the day, this is the convention you want to go to.
Nice. You're selling it. Good.
Yeah. I mean, they tried for years to get me to go. They're like, oh, you've been going to these mainstream ones. You got to go to Cinema Wasteland. I'm like, oh, it's a long drive. Mm-hmm. And then I went and I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like, nobody here, like, all the mainstream conventions at this point are like people selling stuff. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, I'll give you my autograph for $50. And this is still like people who are legitimately like they'll charge you for signatures, but it's like practically nothing.
Yeah.
Because they're just happy to interact with people.
Right.
Well, Jason, now you got to go. You got to
Yeah,
get some
we'll
time
see.
off in October, and so we can go to this. We can all three of us go to this thing,
Yeah,
It's-
we'll
and
see.
maybe
It's
we
the-
can even get Lloyd Kaufman on this podcast.
It's a good possibility.
Yeah.
And especially the fact that Shakespeare Shitstorm is going to be playing that really,
Really
because I've been wanting to see that
Yeah.
for a while.
Lloyd is a very good self-promoter.
He's fucking awesome. He's the king.
Yeah, he's the king.
He
Yes.
is.
Yes.
So we haven't even done ratings on this
Oh,
movie
yeah.
yet. So who wants to do that?
Well-
Any takers on this, or
What do you think my rating is going to be here?
I think your rating is going to be a 12.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, then I feel this is unfair because I was going to say 10, thinking that 10 was top.
Yeah. No.
Oh no, Jason's given movies more than 10 on
I think I
multiple
gave
occasions.
one. I think it was the janitor.
Yeah, you
I
did
think the
give the
janitor got
janitor a
12.
12. Yeah.
Okay.
So that one and this one get a 12 for obvious fucking reasons. There's a single frame of this movie I would change. I think every single line in this movie is fucking great.
Mhm.
I mean, everything. There was never a point where they were just like, I think we need to try to wrap this up, you know? Like they definitely, the attention to detail in every aspect was just spot on. I think, the humor never falls flat. Even when the Seinfeld shit.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, what is that?
Ups, I can't hear you because I got a pickle in my ear. Like that shit, like fucking, I love every single line in this movie. I literally could recite the movie, like, while it's playing. Like, it's just so good. And I think for the fact that it came out at the perfect time, I think our generation really got lucky with music and with movies and everything else. We got it good because, we were kind of peak.
He's gonna talk in his old man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we did
You
though.
kids don't know what it was like. We had it good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the 90s were very punk rock,
Yeah.
and kind of anything goes. And I thought that's a great time to be coming of age and just like discovering your sense of humor and everything else. I mean, it was a perfect introduction to shitty movies. And like I said, this was my first DVD I ever bought. I think the other one I bought after this was Johnny Mnemonic for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like $5. It was like one of those. It was,
Yeah,
it was like $5. I'm like, whoa, it's a DVD for $5,
Yeah.
And so I bought that, but this was the first one I really went out of my way to find, and I think it was at Best Buy, and I got the uncut version, and I was so excited because, like, I couldn't see. I was waiting for that uncut version, and when it came out on DVD, it had both versions of it, and I was able to see it. And yeah, I think this movie holds up, and I think it holds up even better than when it first came out, just because of the fact that it's like I said, the pacing and everything else. We've kind of, like, movies have gotten more stimulating, more going on, if you can't capture the viewer every single second, then you've failed almost. And this movie does that without even like the time it came out. Those movies weren't that style.
That wasn't the thing to do at all.
Yeah, and so like I said, we didn't even feel like picking up our phones the whole goddamn time that we're watching this movie, which I can't even say for most movies that come out now. So that's my take on it.
So Gavin, are you sticking with the 10?
I didn't say 10.
Oh.
No, I thought he was going to give it a 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You go then.
No, I'm not going to. My ratings don't make sense.
No.
And like, although I don't have one single bad thing to say about this movie, not one, I'm still only going to give it an 8, which for me, that's like still way up there, but I'm not going to give it a 10, even though I can't say a single bad thing about it. So I can't justify that or explain why I feel that way. And I'm not even going to try to explain the rating because I've rambled for the last how long about all the things that I like about the movie. So
yeah, and I mean, it's kind of like me with Quigley, man. Like you can't explain. I can't explain why I give that movie. I acknowledge all the bad things about it. I acknowledge that half the movie's just a fucking dog running down the sidewalk. Like, but there's, it's just, it gets me,
Yeah. It's a gem.
So does anybody want to guess what I'm going to give this movie?
I think you're going to give this movie like a 6.
I was going to also say 6.
Okay, so you're both wrong.
Really?
Oh.
So, well, first of all, let me just say that if I were to just rate this on movies in his genre, I would agree with you, Jason. I'd probably give it a 12. Because I don't think that I'm going to ever see a movie that did it as right as they did it.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's a great movie,
Mm-hmm.
but for the genre it's in and how much I like the genre, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it on the basis of normal movies. I would give it like a 7.5.
Whoa.
So
I gotta say, I really think that this podcast is slowly changing you.
yeah, it might be.
You know.
Might be. And maybe at some point in time you'll play a movie that's just a piece of shit and I'll be like, "Oh, that was so good." But
Yeah.
But that could very well be.
Yeah, my next pick is Prayer of the Roller Boys.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But
yeah, we're actually we're gonna be watching one of Gab's movies next because it actually goes well with the Troma.
yeah,
What is it?
this is totally a coincidence because it's been on my radar for a while to show. It's Never Too Young to Die.
Okay. Do you want to tell us what? Because I'm curious what it's about. I know we're gonna redo what it's about when it's.
Well, let me say up front, Never Too Young to Die, not a horror movie.
Okay.
So I already failed there, but it's an 80s movie where our hero is high school super spy John Stamos.
Okay.
Nice.
And the villain is hermaphrodite, played by Gene Simmons of Kiss,
Oh shit.
Wow.
whose goal in life is to poison the water supply of LA.
Okay.
So John
Interesting.
Stamos has to use his spy gymnast skills to stop Gene Simmons from poisoning the water supply.
I
of
hope
LA.
this is as good as Cutting Class or Dental School.
Wow.
I have not seen Dental School, but I think
That's because no one keeps whoever has it isn't returned it to the video store.
yeah. I think I can say with confidence that this is in the range of Cutting Class.
Oh, I hope so because I love Cutting Class. That was one of the. I think that was the most surprising movie that we've seen so far. Like I enjoyed it as much as I did.
I think Never Too Young to Die. I showed this to my sister, my brother-in-law, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've been making people watch this movie, and they watched it, and half of the movie was they're like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
But not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It was like, "What the hell?"
You know,
so I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by this movie that nobody has ever heard of.
so not to go too off the rails, but when you show movies to people,
Yeah.
like you were talking about this before, like where you'll show somebody Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD,
Yeah.
and you'll show it to him knowing like this is like not a good thing to be doing, but
Yeah.
but I want to subject this person to it. I want somebody to see this with me. So I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, I did the same thing, except like the sad part about it is when I used to do it, I would be doing it thinking, there's no way Eric's not going to like this
movie.
Really?
Yeah. Like I would show people like fucking Terror Firmer, or I would show people Blood Sucking Freaks, and I'd be like, this movie's fucking, you're going to fucking love this movie. And everybody'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
And I had that lack of self-awareness.
I wouldn't show somebody Blood Sucking Freaks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But there's other movies where I recognize it's bad, but I'd still show somebody. Just because I'd be like, hey, this is. But there's other Blood Sucking Freaks I wouldn't show people. Most of the cannibal movies I wouldn't show people.
Well, like Gummo. I showed Gummo too.
Everybody.
I would show Gummo to people.
Yeah. So I got so much shit. Fucking Nick Bees, God rest his soul. Fucking Nick Bees demanded an hour and a half of my time back. Or of his time back. He was like, you owe me an hour and a half. Like, and he was so fucking, everyone was mad at me. Like, I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought you guys would like it.
But that was the epitome of bad movies you've shown people, Jason. That movie's terrible. My favorite.
I love it.
My favorite thing about watching a movie with Jason, and I remember the first time we ever went to a theater and watched a movie, and I think the movie was called Wolf Creek that we went and saw.
Oh, it could have been.
I'm sorry.
And Jason's like, "Oh, you guys are gonna fucking love this movie. It's gonna be fucking awesome." And this has happened on numerous occasions. We get halfway through the movie, and he turns and looks at me, and he's like, "I'm sorry, man. This movie
It wasn't
sucks."
Wolf Creek. You know what it was? It was Seed of Chucky.
I know it happened with Seed of Chucky too,
Yeah.
but I think it happened with Wolf Creek as well. There was like a span where every movie you're like, "You got to go see this movie," and we're like, "Fine, we'll go see the movie."
Yeah.
And then we would watch it, and I'd be like, "Oh
thank
my
you
God."
for being a good sport, though, man.
Yes.
You always supported me.
Seed of Chucky's not. Wolf Creek has a lot of fans, and I've just always thought it was boring.
Well,
as
have you
hell.
seen the sequel? Because the sequel's very, very good.
It's better.
It's better.
It's not. I still don't. I don't get it. I don't get the Wolf Creek love, but whatever.
I just think his character, I forgot what his name, Mick something or other. I just fucking love it. I think his character is fucking hilarious, and I haven't really watched. There's a TV show for that too, if you didn't know. And I haven't. I watched like the first episode. It was pretty good, and then after that, it kind of just turns into like a detective show.
Yeah.
And it's not like you don't see a lot of Mick, and it's like, well, what's the fucking point? I can watch a shitty detective show.
Sure, yeah. There's plenty of those on TV, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna wrap this episode up so Gavin can get to his thing he's got to do in 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
but I forget. Gavin, what was the movie for next week we'll be back with?
Never Too Young to Die.
Never Too Young to Die. We'll be back in 2 weeks with that movie. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting movie review.